Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me. I'm Allison. It's important. Thanks for joining me for Where I'm From 131 with Debbie. What have you been reading? I've been reading The Future by Naomi Alderman, who also wrote The Power, which I read and loved. And there's a TV show, but I haven't watched that. Anyway, my friend Tamar gifted me this for my birthday, and I've really been enjoying working my way through books that my friends have given me because some are ones that I wouldn't necessarily pick up and some are, and it's just fun. Oh, Debbie, there you are.
I'm back.
You're back. You froze. So I decided to just restart.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I decided to kick you off for whatever reason.
Technology
Sorry.
does not like me. I don't understand it. I'm on my second Instagram account because I locked myself out of the first and can never get back
Oh,
on. So,
oh
yeah,
no.
it's personal. I know it.
And it's very frustrating that you can't ever get a human being to help you with any of these issues. Um, it's a low key fear of mine because I've done a lot on this account and connected with a lot of people, and I'm like, what happens if I get locked out?
Yeah, I think the worst thing
It's
is read this for me, please. But
I have your poem, yes. Well, maybe we should begin in
okay,
case, yeah, we don't want to, but I believe that it's going to be fine.
it will
So,
be fine.
yes. Okay, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Oh my goodness, I'm nervous. Okay.
No, it's
I am
okay.
from. I am from a white cat who thought I was her sister. From 8 Hour Cream and Vicks Vapor Rub. I am from a suburban ranch house in the old part of town. Sturdy, stoic, with a torn swimming pool lining and worms bleached white from the filter. I am from poorly grafted walnut trees with human lifespans, shady but soon to be wilty and anemic, fallen green walnuts infested with worms. I am from celebrating both Hanukkah and Christmas with blue and silver ornaments and never showing weakness. From Thalia Lee and Morton Sigmund. I am from worrying that banks are going to go under and take all your money and telling restaurant hosts that this table is too drafty. From mommy caught pneumonia in the hospital and isn't going to get better, and never draw attention to yourself. From 1970s Buddhism, transcendental meditation, and way too much opera. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, then Danville, California, when it was still empty brown hills and desiccated walnut trees. Lox and bagels and whitefish. Also bee pollen and non-fat yogurt and overly dense wheat bread that's obviously good for you. From a mother who read Sunset Magazine and died when I was 10, and an unprepared nuclear physicist father who became my hero, and the white cat who slept by my side. Thank you.
Yes, that was beautiful. And I wanted to say I'm so sorry for your loss. I know it was a long time ago, but that is a very hard time to lose anyone, but particularly a parent. So
Oh,
I just want to say
thank
that.
you. Thank you.
Yes, because my brother died when I was 10, and I still feel like, wow, that sucked. That was terrible, you know?
Yes, no, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, when I
Yeah.
was writing my book, it was like, oh, why was I socially awkward? Why was I this? Why was I that? And I was like, well, that's
Yeah.
why,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah. And I just yesterday, I'm working on co-editing an anthology with another sibling loss friend,
Oh,
and I was just reading an essay because we're working on, compiling them, and she lost her brother at 12, and she says, I just was too young to even process the loss. I couldn't even really, and I don't know, it felt really powerful to read. Like, there's part of the reason we aren't really haven't processed it. I don't even know how you process something like that really ever, but we were just kids.
yeah, I lost my mom in 1973, and it was a time when if the kid appeared to be doing okay, you didn't talk about the loss
For
because that
sure.
would make them feel worse. So we weren't
Right.
supposed to process it. We were supposed to just charge forward and kind of pretend that we didn't notice mommy wasn't here anymore. And so
Yeah.
it was kind of an archaic way to
Yes,
deal with
that's
it.
so true. The whole like, yeah, as if you ever forgot. And if
Right,
someone
right.
brought,
Or like it's not at the forefront of your mind. It's not like you're completely confused, but
right,
you're a child, so you just like you do your homework or
right,
whatever it is,
right.
and you don't realize, well, okay, there's been this major shift, but I can't be late for school,
I know it's so, anyway, it's very true. And my brothers and my half brothers and their mother died when they were young. And that's certainly how it was. Uh, and it's just really, I don't know. It's shocking how terrible we are at dealing with grief in this country. And I
I
mean, and you've dealt with it obviously again with your husband, and that's what your memoir is about,
yeah,
right?
yes, exactly. Yeah, I lost him when I was 50. That was
Mm,
coming up on 11 years, so it's been a while. But yeah, I certainly was a little dark for a while. I was like, gee,
mm,
mom at 10,
mhm,
husband at
mhm,
50. Am I, you know, why me?
mhm.
But I got over it. But yeah, it was surprising.
Yeah,
Not what I signed
yeah.
up for.
No, I know. Yeah, I think about it probably more than I should about my spouse. I think because of my brother's death, and then he had a death early in his life. So we are not those people who are like, oh, we'll live forever for sure. Like we're like, like, oh, I'm glad you're still here. So I'm sorry for that loss too. So worms, you got some worms in your
I
childhood,
got
Bowie.
worms.
Worms in the pool, worms in the walnuts, and then was that all in Danville?
That was all in Danville, yeah. It just kind of echoed for me because worms are symbolic of
Yeah.
death. And I just remember as a child having all these responsibilities, and one was cleaning out the pool filter. And the thing that just grossed me out was that, I'd clean it out and had these white worms with chlorine. And it was, I was a kid and a girl, and it was like, oh, girl, I'm like, ew.
Yeah.
I didn't, this didn't strike me as a good thing. I would like scream, I was like really, really,
Yeah.
it's so gross.
Worms are very visceral. I mean, I'm sure there are some people who are not disturbed by them, but I mean, I can power through almost anything, but I don't enjoy them,
Yeah, I don't
you
find
know.
them. Yeah, I don't. I can. Yeah, yeah, I can
Yeah.
live without a house without a pool or walnut trees or that. Yeah. If I garden, I save the worms. They're good for the soil. I'm compassionate. I'm a
Yeah.
yogi. Move with my gloves. But yeah.
So were those two influences your two parents, or were they intermingled, the Buddhism and the wheat bread and the other choices? Because you had both, right?
Oh, the
Or
lox
were
and
they? Yeah. Yeah.
oh, the lox and bagels and the white fish and all those are my grandparents
Mm,
who lived near me. They're Reginald and Miriam from Brooklyn.
mm,
Um, we're depression. My family's depression are New York Jews. So
yeah.
I grew up with a lot of, God willing, we'll be
Yeah.
okay. Don't drive.
Yeah.
Call when you get there.
Yeah.
I come from a very overprotective family, and then the bee pollen and
Hmm.
the transcendental meditation came after my mom died, and we lived in Northern California. And at that point, my dad was sort of looking at how to live differently without her, and it was a kind of consciousness expanding time. So he was getting into all this stuff. And
Yes, I had a lot of that in my childhood. So whenever I hear it, we definitely had TM and all kinds of other things. But the wheat bread that is healthy. I didn't even eat regular bread. Until somewhere in my 20s. I was like eating sprouted grain bread. Like I just thought that's what bread was. Like
me too. Yeah,
that's what you
yeah,
eat.
I thought that was what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't like it very much. And when people like go to somebody's house, though, like I don't know if you have this, like you'd go to like maybe one of your friends' houses, and they'd have like white bread or
Oh yeah.
Wonder bread and
Yeah.
like processed meat. And think, oh my god, this is so good.
It's well known by my mother that I would trade a friend for her Wonder Bread and salami sandwich for
Yes.
my pea pods, which are now called snap peas. But at the time, they were, peas with peas inside them. And I would trade her happily. And when I would go to her house, it would be that Campbell's soup, Oreos. I was like, what is this place? What is all this food? Um, yeah.
I know. Processed food was so great. Chef Boyardee macaroni in a can. I mean, that was heaven.
Mhm.
I didn't want all this. Like lightly poached fish and practically raw broccoli. And, I mean, losing my mom was hard, but then my dad became a health nut. So, there was that too.
And did you have siblings or
No, I'm weird life. I'm an only child. My father's an only child. My late husband was an only child. So I have a really small family. Being alone is kind of like normal for me. I mean, I was kind of serious with the cat was my sister.
Mhm. Yeah. And then what did you do to pass the time spending so much time alone?
I was a big reader.
Hmm.
I watched a lot of TV. I was not, I did not have a helicopter parent. I was not one of those.
I don't think any of us had helicopter parents back.
Yeah,
I don't
I was not
think.
greatly motivated, but I watched TV. I read a lot. I spent
Hmm.
time. No, my dad worked. I spent time with my grandparents. And I had, I had some few friends, but I was
Hmm.
a pretty quiet kid, so I was pretty happy with some books and my cat.
Hmm.
And then I went to law school when I was right after college and did that. So
Right.
I didn't
Yeah.
have a lot of imagination, I guess.
I don't know about that. So what was the process like or experience for you writing this poem?
At first I was just kind of a little bit paralyzed,
Mhm.
which I usually am with new experiences. Again, New York Jews, highly cautious. Um, but what? But then I started to get into it,
Mhm.
and I enjoyed it very much because I just put a bunch of phrases down and just kind of free associated, and then read it out loud a bunch of times. I teach writing, so I know that's kind of what you do. And then just kind of edited it until I felt like it had a little bit of rhythm
Mhm.
to it, so that when I read it, I felt like it
Mhm.
flowed a little bit. So, I mean, it certainly wasn't hard. I found it very enjoyable and interesting, and it brought up interesting memories for
Yeah.
me. And honestly, a lot of gratitude for my
Mhm.
dad because, despite losing my mom, I had an amazing dad as a parent. He's still with us at 94.
Wow.
I know.
That's amazing.
So I actually felt a lot of gratitude. When I
Hmm.
was doing my memoir, that was one of the things that kind of helped me to write it because just writing something that was like, this is miserable wasn't going to do much. So I kind of had to get in
Hmm.
there and, you know, see, there was a lot of good stuff there.
That's really sweet.
So,
Um, any other thoughts about your experience or sorry, this person spams spammed me
oh,
last time and is spamming me now,
I
so just ignore
could see
them.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, so just ignore them.
Yeah.
Um um so what else was I gonna say? What were some of your favorite TV shows, Debbie? This is a certain I just like to talk about childhood television. It's got nothing to do with the poem. It's my
Okay.
own personal.
I like the Partridge Family, the
Yes.
Brady Bunch.
Yes.
Um, oh, it's pretty obvious, right? I like Partridge Family and Brady Bunch probably because those are big families. And
Hmm.
I also like interpersonal drama,
Hmm.
I always like now I prefer a rom-com to,
Hmm.
an adventure. And then I like shows like Courtship of Eddie's Father, Family Affair. You'll notice they had dead mothers.
I know I was going to ask. It's part of the reason I asked because I've noticed that sometimes we watch things, particularly when we're children, that feed something for us, that give us something that, even if, like, but you had a very specific thing, your mom died, but like this sort of felt like a big family or a surrogate mother or, something that it was comforting.
Yes. And I always love things where, there's this thing and it seems like such a big deal and it gets resolved so smoothly at the end of the half hour, right? I mean, there's something
No.
about that that's so
Yeah.
reassuring and
Yeah.
unlike
Yeah.
life.
I really enjoyed how I came from a blended family and there were five of us, so there were some similarities to the Brady Bunch, but it was just so like their fights were so innocuous. I mean, they fought,
Yeah.
nobody seemed really pained by it. Then it was resolved,
Yeah.
and they just all had dinner together.
Yeah, and it was always something kind of trivial, like, I mean, somebody borrowed somebody's bike or
Yeah.
somebody feels unloved, but, of course they're
Yeah.
loved. Or, it was never anything really serious, like they really didn't like each other
Right.
or this really wasn't going to work.
Right. Right. They weren't, and they didn't have clear favorites. The Brady's weren't like, ugh, Jan, get out of here. Like, I mean, like
You're
how
right.
oftentimes with large families, there are favorites and it's not very well hidden, at least back in my time. And then it was like, oh, you're imagining things. We love all six of you equally. And um, yeah, I think it's interesting, and how those things really like embedded themselves in our consciousness. Like that they show up in people's poems a lot. And I I it's something I'm interested in general, just kind of how media lives with us, because so oftentimes we're frantic about it with our children and how media is not good, and I'm like, okay, but I sat in front of the TV
I did.
for hours and hours,
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, maybe it isn't. I think now it might be good because it's a whole half hour. I think people's attention spans now are 3 minute increments or
Yeah,
2 minute increments. So,
yeah, that's what they're worried
watching a
about,
whole
for sure.
television show is, maybe an exercise in concentration, though I don't like to think so.
It is funny to think that at that time that people were worried about that, right? It
Yeah.
was like, oh no, they're watching half-hour shows. Now it's like, oh, a half hour, that's a very long time to watch something.
Well, it's the whole thing was funny because, like, when I was, we grew up in California, so if you had a B plus average and $2,000, you could get into college. You could get into a UC college if you were a resident. So there was the stress of you going to college. It was pretty easy. And now it's so complicated. People have these huge GPAs and all this. So of course they're not going to watch a half hour television show. Things were just, the stakes felt a lot lower. It seemed much easier and economical to do things.
I do think it's related to stress. I totally agree. I'm laughing because I think not enough people really consider how difficult it is to be a child or a teenager in the world right now. It's like you're expected to be like, the expectations were just very different. I mean, people barely thought about us. They didn't really have expectations. It was like, oh, you're going to be fine. Just keep doing what you're doing, work hard. It's like much more complex. And you're right. A half hour is a commitment to them.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Yes. I think it's kind of I think it's kind of funny. I mean, it was just so much easier.
yes, I agree. And I mean, I would come home from school and just plop myself down, it's like, and then I would do homework and whatnot. But I felt like, oh, I don't know. I found it very reassuring.
And maybe that's a good point, though. It is reassuring because this presents a family life that is very
Mm-hmm.
idealized and it's very cozy and it's loving and everything's resolved very quickly and nothing's really terrible. And the kids do love each other.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have real life situations where people don't love each other in real life, or
Yeah.
families don't resolve things. Again, my family was simple because it was so very, very small. Just my father and my grandparents and my cat. And that was it. But again, I'm an only child. I'm maladjusted. My late husband and I didn't have kids. I'm so
That's completely fine. I mean, you don't have to have a big family and be from a big family. And I mean, I know that now in media we see a lot more representations of more diverse points of view and experiences, and I think that's really important. And I'm grateful for that. But for me, it was, I guess it's something I'm thinking about, how we find spaces where we can feel reassured in our lives, especially as children, when we have a difficult time articulating what we're even looking for. We
if
still
you're
manage.
looking at that, it's interesting because these were idealized families, but there also weren't a lot of choices, right? You had networks, so this is what you're watching.
Yeah,
Now there are infinite
there
number of choices,
really are.
and when I look at like Apple TV, they all seem to involve aliens in a dystopian world that's on the edge of collapse, and they look like the same story to me, but the effects are dazzling. But you can watch any number of watching the world end or murder and mayhem at any time of the day. So I do think there was a different kind of commonality and idealism
Mm-hmm.
in the media that we watched as kids
Yeah.
because we were all watching the same stuff and it was very, very tame.
Yeah. We were kind of being fed something there was not a lot of question. I mean, it was very like, okay, this is the goal. Like you're saying, oh, I didn't have a mom, I didn't have kids, like as if that's not as great of an option as all the other we were definitely being sold marriage, kids, this is the way to happiness,
Yeah, it's
and
very much like a conservative think tank. I just
yeah.
did an interview with this conservative think tank guy, and
Yeah,
try to encourage more young people to get married. And they
right.
say the same, marriage, and we've got to make people see how great it is. And it feels like that was kind of the stuff we
Yeah,
were fed.
yeah, for sure. Anyway, thank you for this conversation. I know it's not exactly related to the poem, but I just feel like I don't
That's
know.
fun.
It definitely was like that. And it was so funny because for me early on, I was just like, oh, well, I'm not going to get married because I'm not like these people. Like this isn't, I'm much more like one day at a time, whatever her name was,
Oh, I like it. Anne Romano and yeah, Barb.
I
Yeah, yeah.
was like, oh, I'm going to be hanging out with the handyman. Um, and having my life around my children, but not around a family life. I just didn't really see myself as a person who would have that. Um, and how that was like an alternative lifestyle at that time.
Yeah, I guess that was. It was a divorced person. Oh my God. Yeah. See, I saw myself. I became a lawyer because I saw myself having a credit rating. Because my dad dated women in the
Yeah.
70s, and this is very sad. They'd been divorced and they didn't have their own credit ratings, and you had
Yes.
about women having to go to PG needs. Here's $500. Patriarchy.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so, having seen that when I was younger, um, I was very certain that I was going to have my law degree, my own credit rating, my own apartment,
Mm-hmm.
and then I wound up with my high school sweetheart for 32 years. But all the PG and stuff was in my name.
Yeah. I think that I also had that awareness a little differently, but it was like always, I have to build my own life.
Yes.
And similarly, I did marry someone that I've been married to for a long time and we have a life together, but um I handle all the things. Like I'm always astonished or nervous about women who know nothing about their finances when they're in a couple. I'm like, but you
I
know.
let some of that happen when my husband died, and it was tricky. And I fixed it. But again, I have a law degree, and it took like my first published article actually national thing was for the writing prompt I had to be a bitch, and I wrote about it as being a widow getting everything kind of straightened out. So it's a real thing.
Yeah.
And I just hung out on his computer and paid bills in his name. But in retrospect, I should have been much more involved in our finances and handled things. I'm very lucky. Again, Depression era Jews, so we save. But it's I should have been way more involved. It's funny. I kind of flipped on that when I got older and just
That's
kind of
interesting.
settled in.
Yeah. I mean, I get it because life is comes at you. Like life is always coming at us. And so sometimes we shift things like we give our focus to
Yeah.
because we feel safe because you felt safe. And
Yeah,
so,
I felt very safe and secure, and I never saw the possibility of change, which
right.
is
They,
kind of
they make it surprisingly hard when someone dies. I mean, I think it's part of the business plan, to make it very difficult to cancel things, to take possession of things, but it's the stress of having someone you love die is significant. And then
oh, it is.
you think like, why does this need to be a such a difficult process? You would think that they would be kind of lining the way for you to grieve in peace, but that has not been my
And
experience.
considering it's so darn common, we've got
Yeah.
7 million widows or whatever the situation
Right.
is. People are
Right.
dying all the time.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. It's also hard because I don't think people realize you lose so much of your sense of self and your intellectual capabilities.
Yes.
So this is stuff that you might be able to
Right.
do if you were just changing your floors or something. But when
Right.
someone's dead, because it took me 3 years after my husband died to have any kind of a brain again. I mean, I could do stuff and I did all the paperwork. I'm good at
Right.
that. But in terms of kind of thinking creatively or writing a book, that type of thing, I was
Mm-hmm.
writing these short vignettes that were, I really fragmented concentration. It takes,
Well, I think brain fog is real
oh yeah.
and we can get it for any number of reasons, and I think I had a lot of it around being pregnant and having children. And I thought, oh, this is my brain now, I guess. And I just need to make peace with this is my brain now, and then it wasn't forever. But I didn't know. And that's the thing about when you're in a brain fog for either life reasons or hormonal reasons or any other things. Like, you don't know.
Now you don't know exactly. Yeah, you don't know. And then it comes back and it's like, oh, okay, this is who I am. I'm not really like, it's not really like menopause brain. I'm not really getting that much
Yeah.
older. My brain isn't really
Right.
deteriorating.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that, yes, that. So Well, any other last thoughts, Debbie? This was an enjoyable conversation for me. I hope
Oh, I
that it was for you
love this. This
too.
is really fun. You've taken
Okay.
away the stigma of Instagram Live. Thank
Okay,
you.
hooray, my work here is
Yeah.
done.
Okay,
Um,
I guess I guess I would just say this was an awesome experience, and I wanted to thank you. And that part of what I try to do is offer hope for people who have lost somebody and feel that the world's over, they've lost their sense of self. So I generally try to present a position of hope,
it's important. Hope is a revolutionary act, right? In this world we live in, like we got to keep on,
especially
yeah,
these days.
got to keep on hoping. Well, thank you so much for your time and your beautiful poem, and it was a pleasure, Debbie. Thank you.
And I love this experience. Thank you, Allison. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Okay, bye.
Bye.